Well, it's good to see a lot of people stuck around. I sat up there in Josh McGrath's presentation. I thought all the retailers were just going to leave and our VRT prescriptions aren't any good. But I had the opportunity to hear him back in September, and it really gets you thinking, okay, if we're 50% wrong, are we 50% right? Is that still pretty good? So something to think about. And as we're looking at these nutrient management plans in this H2Ohio program, that's one thing we're paying for is variable rate application. And we feel as a state that that's a good program. If nothing else, we're at least promoting soil testing and nutrient management and those practices. And that's really the baseline where we want to be with all these programs. So I'm going to kind of hit what we are looking for a nutrient management plan for H2Ohio. What does it mean for the rest of Ohio? Our voluntary nutrient management plan affects everyone when it comes to Ohio. And our criteria holds through on everyone. H2Ohio is all of Ohio. Yes, we started in Northwest Ohio, but we certainly are looking to expand. What the timetable for that, I don't know. Not going to speculate. But we're going to try to get it right up here in 14 counties first before we expand further. So, and then what are the next steps? As Glenn alluded to, yes, I put that Excel spreadsheet out there about 2 weeks ago. And I got a random text message, and it was just six pictures and stuff, and it said, tell me your thoughts on potassium. Well, I had a reference error, and it wasn't right. Well, I'm worried about phosphorus. I never reviewed it for potassium, so that did happen. I spent time yesterday working on it, trying to get it back to go, and hopefully I'll be able to review it one last time tomorrow, run it by some other guys, and get it out and on the website. So if you're not, who went to an H2Ohio rollout meeting? Yeah, large amount. We had great turnout. I mean, over 2,000 producers, people in attendance. We're really excited about this program, and we really hope that it's a good program for a lot of producers and ag retailers to provide some more services to their customers. So we're looking at paying $2 for a voluntary nutrient. If you're not familiar with the program, we're looking at paying $2 for a voluntary nutrient man. $2 to develop it, and then we're going to pay up to $2 yearly for up to 4 years to implement that. And implementation is doing your record keeping. You are not afforded the substantial or the affirmative defense if you are not doing the record keeping part of that nutrient management plan. So that's an important thing. That we're going to be paying for record keeping because we're going to want to know that you are following that nutrient management plan. Second one is that variable rate application. We're going to be paying $8 for that practice, and that's going to be for all acres you're applying. Subsurface placement, we're paying $30 for that subsurface placement, and that's for the as-applied acres. Manure incorporation, it's broken into two. Poultry litter is $35. All other manure is going to be $60. And going back to what the previous speaker from Canada said, that they're really trying to look at how can we move it, where are people that need it, and we want to really take benefit or take advantage of that situation where we can look at manure maybe on a neighborhood approach and see if we can't find a neighbor who could utilize it and see if they can benefit from it, because we may have high soil testing that's going to kick us out of the program. Conservation crop rotation, that's that small grains program. We're looking at adding wheat, barley, and rye back into rotation and paying $35 for that, and then hay or our forages practice, we're going to be $35 on that also. I'm going through it quick. I want to kind of show you the spreadsheet real quick, and I got a lot of slides to go through. Overwintering cover crops, we're looking at a 50% overwintering crop, and we're going to pay $25 that. And then drainage water management, that's our only structural practice on there. So here's the eligible acres, and it covers a large percent of the Maumee Basin, and we decided to go on a county-based level. We have soil and water districts at the county level. It just makes it easier for delivery. So we decided that we're looking at about 2.6 million acres that are eligible for the program. So what is required in a voluntary nutrient management plan in Ohio? This is straight out of Ohio Revised Code, and that it is not older than 4 years. That rule was changed. If you're familiar with that, it used to say 3 years. Last year it was changed to 4 years. The next thing is the method and seasonal time of utilization and application of nutrients. When are you doing it and how are you doing it? Then the next one, it says that you have to identify everything. So if you're using biosolids, compost, manure, everything else, everything's identified in that plan going forward. And then the final things are, where is the field at, how many acres, and what are your yields? So back in 2016, I think we were made aware that Senate Bill 150, if everyone remembers that, fertilizer certification, that required that the director of the Department of Ag, Mr. Daniels at the time, develop a form for a nutrient management plan that was approved by the director of the Department of Ag. So we went ahead and started putting this spreadsheet together back in 2016. We really have not seen it getting utilized by a lot of producers because we've never really had a program to require it. Now we have a program to require it, and here comes everything else that go along with it. So our plan is certainly one way avenue to do it. You can also do a CNMP through a 590 CNMP through NRCS, and we'll get into that in a second. But so I have the guidelines here straight from the H2Ohio requirements. You have to meet those rules we just went over. 4R dealer can write it, a CCA can write it, soil and water districts can write it. We're going to need to lead on the ag retailers, CCAs, independent consultants, so on, a lot. Our districts they're doing with all the other paperwork of this. They don't have time to be writing nutrient management plans. So we're really encouraging our producers to work with their ag retailer, work with a consultant to get those plans written. And we're going to look at some different avenues here in the near future on maybe using 4R dealers to be directors designee so they can actually approve a nutrient management plan. And I'll get into that in a little bit. As I said, $2 for development, $2 annually to implement that plan. So who needs a CNMP? If you cannot turn the manure off, we would ask that you have a CNMP. And the big reason there is we want to have soil and water folks or engineers come out to look at your home site to see if there are any other resource concerns that may not be addressed. We would hate to be a couple years into this program and see a situation where they've got silage leachate going straight into the ditch. So from right now, we are saying that anyone who creates manure needs to have a CNMP. So there are avenues to get that CNMP written. You can stop in and talk to NRCS, the TSPs, and there's different avenues to go out there and do it. I guess if you would decide to write one on your own, we would provide up to $2 to write a CNMP if you wanted to go out and not work with NRCS, but certainly a situation. So on top of this, we would require you to use our H2Ohio manure application guidance tool. That's a field-by-field basis, and it's going to give you some numbers on what your rates to apply, looking at stuff as we move through the program. CNMP is going to be a document that is more or less static, but we're going to use that manure application guidance tool to update things annually based on manure analysis and stuff as they come in. So it's going to be very difficult to see, but I basically said there's two avenues. The producer has to decide whether they're going to do a voluntary nutrient management plan or a CNMP. So they can kind of go through the steps. We have the different avenues to write it: soil and water, CCA, ag retailers, TSPs. And then we have this 4R certification program down here that we're looking at. We're meeting with the Ohio Agribusiness Association, the business that administers the 4R program, and we're going to work with them to see if there's any opportunities there. We ran a pilot 2 years ago, or a year ago, to look at if there's any advantage to working with those ag retailers to maybe skip some of these steps on how we get a nutrient management plan approved. So here is a screenshot of that spreadsheet. Yes, it's an Excel spreadsheet. We certainly know this is way behind when we start looking at hitting the easy button, as Josh McGrath said, of making prescriptions. We have soil tests come in Excel files, CSVs. We import them all. We say, here's the crop rotation, here's our yield goal. We hit a button, and it makes every map. We know that that exists. We know that that is something that we have to take advantage of. So what we're asking is that most people would use this VRT Review Tool. This VRT Review Tool is going to punch in some soil tests up here, put your yield goals in, pick your products, and it's going to tell you the rate. It's going to tell you the annual rate. So if you're doing a 2-year application, you might have to do some math to say, okay, I'm doing 100 pounds of MAP for my corn crop, 150 or another 80 pounds for my soybean crop, add them together, I have 180 pounds. Is that prescription saying 180 pounds for MAP? Yep, that's good. So one of the things we're looking at is having these ag retailers do some of these cover sheets for us and more or less turn them into the district. The district still has the opportunity to review them, and most soil and water districts are going to review them. There's been a lot of misconceptions about what we're requiring. If you are going to get payment on that voluntary nutrient management plan, we're going to need all soil tests for the acres you plan on enroll. So we're going to need them. The amount and what we're telling the districts on how much they review it depends on what kind of plan it is. If a producer's making their own plan, it's probably going to get a little more scrutiny because they don't have the ability of looking at a lot of acres. They're looking at their farm. They may have built their own formula, so we need to look at that a little closer. Ag retailers, we have the 4R program. We're looking at lots of acres. They've likely participated in some other program that we have, so we have a little more confidence that they're probably following Tri-State pretty closely. So we really would encourage you to use the VRT tool if you're working with an ag retailer. We're really not suggesting that farmers write their own plans. I think we're going to get in a situation where a lot of farmers are going to try it. They're going to start banging their head against the wall, and they're going to be frustrated when they could have just went over to the ag retailer or their consultant or so on and said, hey, you've got all my soil tests. Can you do the nutrient management plan for me? And they're going to say, sure. So that's really what we're encouraging. Yes, farmers can write their own plans. They may get scrutinized a little more when it comes to a district level because they don't have the confidence that they have with the ag retailers because the amount of acres, the sheer acres that they're looking at for those prescriptions certainly gives us a little more comfort. So just quickly, what are we looking for when we need that, turn that plan in? So first off, I need to see some kind of map saying, okay, here's where the field is, here is where the grid zone soil tests were taken. So we need that map. Give me acres and then a soil test. That's the next thing. 4 years or newer, we know in rotation, we're going to have to update them. This isn't going to be a static document. We know crops are going to change. We know weather's going to tell us what we're going to do the next year. So we know it's not a static document, so we're not going to act like it's a static document. I've had lots of discussions. Well, if I turn it in for 4 years, what's that mean? Am I stuck to what that says? I have to do corn? No. If the prices dictate something other for your farm, then certainly we're going to be flexible on that, and we're going to allow you to put different crops out there as needed. So the soil test has to be 4 years or newer, or no older than 4 years. The next would be a soil phosphorus test map. This would work, or just actually that soil test. It's nice to see this because if I look at that prescription map, I can compare the two pretty easily. Where are the high spots, where are the low spots, and what are their recommendations saying? So this is very easy for us to come in after we are at verification. We've got a prescription map, and we can say, okay, that as-applies map is going to look very similar to that prescription map. So the next one, potassium map. If you read our rules, we say that phosphorus and potassium have to follow Tri-State. Nitrogen's a fun one because what is the nitrogen rate? Can anyone tell me what the perfect nitrogen rate is? Because we know it's going to change. Weather, soils, everything dictate that. So if on our nutrient management plan, we say you should not exceed this number. And the number we're going back to is that 1995 number of 1.1 or 1.2 pounds for corn. And I think it's approximately that for wheat. But those are the numbers we have in the plan. And we would like those documented, but we certainly aren't going to kick you out of the program if you're 5 pounds over or something in that situation. So just as the potassium map, we're going to have that potassium prescription map to go along with it. Any questions on any of this? So as I kind of talked about earlier, we are looking at this director's designee opportunity, and we piloted it through Legacy Co-op and Lucky Farmers Co-op a year ago with Senate Bill 299 money, And it was really to look at, is there any way we can use that 4R certification program to help us get nutrient management plans written. And so we met with the OAB, and we intend on putting something together to let 4R dealers apply to be director's designee. This would help our soil and water districts out, because then those 4R dealers that become designees, they can approve a nutrient management plan. So our districts do not have to spend time then reviewing them. They certainly can review them once they come in through the door, but they don't have to. And so that's going to give us a little more bang for our buck, I guess, when we're looking at, okay, that $2 is going out for a nutrient management plan, but we may be able to get some benefits of electronic copies and some of those things that will help everyone out and make it a little easier on us. And it's not like those are just going to be rubber stamped. That 4R certification, they're just going to be a rubber stamp. We still can review them. We still can come back and look at the records, and if we start questioning something, we're going to look into it. Being that we're ODA, we have the ability to look at all records for fertilizer applications, and if we start seeing questionable applications, then we certainly can look into that. So, what are our thoughts moving forward? We'd really like the ag retailers and consultants to get at least familiar with the spreadsheet. Yes, it's not perfect. We know it's not. We're not asking you to do 100%. Every acre and every farm is getting reviewed, but we would like you to do a couple cover sheets so you're at least familiar with it. But be in contact with the district. We're looking at 14 districts out there right now, and we're also looking at probably about 70 employees. I've found out in the last about, 3 months that we are not great at playing telephone. The farmer does not hear what the ag retailer, what the soil and water hears. We all heard something different, and so we're trying to figure out where we're at. And so we really need to work on that. I mean, we're trying to send out the same message, but I've heard countless, well, this is what the ag retailer said, and this is what the farmer said, and this is what the district said. So we're really trying to work on consistency. And if you go back to this program, we put it starting back in Thanksgiving, there was nothing. And this is a $30 million program that we rolled out in a couple months. Probably unheard of for government. So we're really trying, please be patient with us. Please be patient with our district staff. We're working, and I'm certain the ag retailers probably feel the same way. They're just said, okay, we've got to do a large number of nutrient management plans that we wouldn't have had to do in the past. So please be patient. So stopping at your district, it'll at least establish some of your expectations. You'll have a better idea on what they're looking for and so on. And hopefully this presentation today gave you a better idea on what you're looking for. Confidentiality. When we talk about nutrient management plans, we've really had this idea that, we don't want our soil test data out there. They'll give that straight to the Lake Erie water keepers or any of the groups up in Toledo that are concerned about soil test data. Under Senate Bill 150, that was I think 2016 was brought into effect there. This says that all nutrient management plans and any documents with them are confidential. And our Director of Agriculture is holding that to, okay, we're not going to release any until a judge tells us differently. So we can give you some level of confidence, and you can read that Ohio Revised Code if you have any questions on that. But right now we have the stance that we're not disclosing any information in that. So livestock producers, if you have a CNMP, look to see when you need to get it updated. If you still have a couple years on your CNMP, you're certainly eligible for those years. But if you know that you're in that last year or so on, you might want to start looking at, okay, what are my avenues to get that CNMP updated or completely redone? So certainly look at that and try to figure out what the next step on to get your CNMP done. I know we have a lot of them have been done recently, but those 3 or 4 years, 5 years go pretty quickly. So I'd encourage you to at least check your dates and make sure you're good for a couple of years. With that, I'm going to just open up the spreadsheet real quick, just go through it real quick. So rule number 1, as soon as you open the document up, the only thing you can click on this first page is going to take you to a hyperlink straight to YouTube. back in 2017 when we originally rolled this out, I put together a YouTube video quickly, just going through, well, not quickly, it's about an hour-long presentation showing the use of it. It has changed slightly, but for the most part, everything should walk yourself through. You should be able to understand what you're looking at and how to use it. But I have a quick, some instructions here on how to use the tools and give you a better idea of what is out there. There's an updates tab. It just says what would happen. This is a cover sheet, punching your farm information, your address, and so on what you were looking at for total acres, who's writing the plan, and so on. The VMP spreadsheet is looking at acres. The VMP spreadsheet is really to be utilized for farms that we're going to use an average soil test. So if we're using a composite sample that's representing 25 acres or less, that's what this VMP spreadsheet is for. And it's going to be very similar to the VRT Review Tool, but you can plan that field's crop rotation out and then put in your nutrients and your rates and so on. The green numbers right here, once you have that crop rotation in with your soil test data, the green numbers will stay green if you're within 2 pounds, one way or the other, of the planned nutrients versus the nutrient needs. This is where we plan the nutrients, and then our seasonal time and application methods. A lot of times, an ag retailer's map, that's the one thing that we don't document, method and seasonal time. So if we can document that, we're pretty well on our way to a nutrient management plan with the VRT Review Tool. I do have a spot down here to do custom fertilizer. You can type a name, you can put in NPK, and then you can pick what it is, whether it's gallons, pounds, or pounds per ton. Gallons would be any of them. The assumed density is 11. We had to decide somewhere in there. So we averaged out the density of our nutrients would be 11. Our pounds per ton, if you are using that, it does not make any assumptions about nutrient availability. So any of the assumptions that any of the other programs would use for nitrogen, they're thrown out. It would just be a 1-to-1. So if all of that N would be available that first year, it wouldn't be like any of the manure tools that we have out there that would make nutrient calculations based on time of year, whether it's tilled in, and so on. But we really are looking for starter products or custom blends for your starters to be implemented that way. Once you punch them in, they'll come up here onto this list. And on the list, we have most of your basic nutrients, 1034O, MAP, DAP, potash, and so on. Once you get all that data punched in, it'll do a product summary. It'll give you year's product and the amount used for those products. If that application is done the fall the previous year, it's going to go into the next year. So if we had nutrients applied fall 2019, they would be planned for 2020. The VRT Review Tool is very similar in look, name, field information, and then punch in the soil test. And this one we're looking at doing maybe the highest soil test, one in the middle, and then one that potentially would be no apply. So all we're trying to do is check for that tri-state recommendation to see if your nutrients follow tri-state. So do the same thing, pick a year, crop data, or the crop yield, and it's going to give you your recommendation through tri-state, and then you go down here and pick one of those similar products. You can do the same thing down here at the bottom of doing custom fertilizer. Yes, that is very limited, only having 2 custom fertilizers. We're well aware of that, but we're trying to make this cover the state of Ohio. And I mean, this was our first attempt, and when we started rolling down this H2Ohio road, this is kind of where we're at. We certainly are looking at or thinking about different opportunities that may come about, and to see what we may need in the future. So there are some buttons over here. If you hit that clear data, it's going to clear your data. It'll save as a PDF. It'll pop open for you. And just yesterday, I added this add field. All it's going to do is create a copy and open a new spreadsheet up for you. So that was one thing I had taken out there originally, or a couple weeks ago, just for simplicity. I had several requests to put it back in. So I went ahead and added that back in. And then I guess that is about it. There is a small checklist down here of just common things that a lot of ag retailer maps may not have. So are all nutrients credited? Is the starter credited? And so more or less the common things that I saw when I was reviewing ag retailers maps to see if they would meet the voluntary nutrient management plan requirements. So I guess with that, is there any questions? Yeah.
Permitted livestock farms plans are already qualified for what they're doing?
Yes, if you are a permitted livestock farm and have the plan required, and as you're permitted, then yes, you do not need to do another CNMP. Yeah.
Is H2Ohio plan on the internet on H2O, or the spreadsheet on the?
This spreadsheet is not. We sent it out to our districts 2 weeks ago. I was made aware of the potassium issue, so we told the districts don't send any more copies out. I'll be sending this out. I really wanted to get it out there just to get people to use it, because then that's the best way to find some errors. So I'll be reviewing this one more time tomorrow, and then we'll be putting it, once we feel a little more comfortable with it, got any other bugs worked out, we'll put it on the ODA website. And there's a bunch of H2Ohio stuff on that ODA website. But if you can't find it, just contact your local soil and water district. They can get you a copy. Yeah.
As an ODA permitted facility, you don't have to do another plan. But am I correct in saying you're not eligible for the VMP payment, or are you eligible for that payment?
So the question was, if you are a permitted facility, would you be eligible for that payment? I wouldn't. I would say that you're not going to get your development money for developing that permit, but certainly I think that implementation part of it, you could be. Maybe Sam, do you feel that same way? Put him on the spot.
Any MFP that we have in permitted facility is probably going to need to be revised because of the additional soil test requirements or the thresholds for phosphorus.
Right. So what Sam said was, this program goes above and beyond it. We have a 50 parts per million requirement for manure incorporation. So our guidelines are going to be a step above. So yes, you're going to have a plan that would be eligible or make you eligible, but certainly we're going to have additional requirements for the programs. Yeah.
The farmer enrolls and follows the best management practices, is the money guaranteed?
As of right now, we're saying yes. We have about $30 million. We have a pretty large percentage of that enrolled in the program. We have several different avenues that we're looking at for funds. We can go back to the controlling board and look at another $80 million. So we're hoping to spend that money. And I guess as of right now, I would feel pretty confident that if you get into your district, that money's going to be secured. Yeah.
I have a CSP contract. My district says because I have any CSP contract, I'm not eligible to be in the program at all.
Yes.
It's a totally unrelated practice to nutrient management. So am I eligible or not?
So with CSP, the question was, if I have a CSP contract, am I eligible for H2Ohio? Current stance is you have a federal contract. Yes, it is not directly related to the practices, but because you have a contract for CSP, you have to have a minimum of that you are meeting nutrient management requirements. So the current stance is that no, we would not be eligible for H2Ohio until that contract is done. If you would decide to cancel that contract, we're not going to let you enroll into H2Ohio until that contract would have been finished.
That makes not very much sense. Okay.
We can't argue it today. Yeah.
Yes, we've had that specific one come up several times.
Yeah, well, we're not going to argue it today.
Yeah.
On your voluntary nutrient management plans, if a producer wants to bring in a manure thing, and he put manure analysis in there.
They can punch it in. It is not going to, the question was, can they bring in a manure analysis and punch it in? Yes, it's going to give you a number. That number is probably not going to be reflective of those nutrients and the nutrient availability. Nitrogen for sure is going to be off because there's some availability issues there. But with manure incorporation, we're going to require them to do another spreadsheet for those acres, and that's going to look and give you a better rate and a better idea on that manure.
Come back to review MNP.
No, we have another spreadsheet for those situations. You're able to follow your CNMP in other situations. Yep.
Are they starting to, on the spreadsheet, incorporate Ohio State's removal rates, or will stay as a fuel tri-state rates right now?
So for right now, we are not changing anything. It is the 1995 numbers. Until Tri-State is official, we're not going to go ahead and change it. For soil tests, everything is going to use that conversion of negative 8.08 plus the soil test. So everything is going to run on that, and the instructions say that until the new Tri-State is official. At that point, we'll probably have to update the spreadsheet. Thank you.